It was the family home of Anne Boleyn, with whom Henry VIII was besotted. It was the perfect spot, quiet and secluded, to woo her.
Wow, look at that. It is just the most fairy tale castle, turreted, with a moat. You can imagine a young king riding over the drawbridge to greet his lady love. If only he hadn't been married.
Anne's older sister, Mary, had originally been the king's mistress. But by the late 1520s, Henry had become obsessed with Anne.
It was Anne's wit and grace and intelligence that drew Henry in, and the fact that she seemed young and fecund enough to give him the male heir that he so ardently desired and desperately needed.
Hever Castle houses an impressive collection of Tudor portraits, which explains how tenuous Henry's claim to the throne was. The Tudor line only started with Henry VII, Henry VIII's father. I'm meeting Dr. Owen Emmerson in the Long Gallery to explore the dynasty.
I love this picture because Henry VII is so often thought of as a sort of miser king, you know, but actually here we've got him in really sumptuous garments, and it reminds us that he was very wealthy because he had been so successful and gathered all that wealth. And I suppose one of the keys to his success is marrying this woman.
Absolutely. This is Elizabeth of York. This is the uniting of those warring families who had torn the country apart for a generation, and now there is stability. And Elizabeth of York is a fundamental part of bringing those two houses together and securing his legitimacy as the reigning king. There's been 30 years of unrest between the warring Plantagenets, the House of York and Lancaster, and he's able to secure peace and lasting peace. And a fundamental part of that is getting an heir, and he does wonderfully well. He has two heirs, Henry and Arthur.
And then here is this amazing king that never was.
It couldn't be a rarer object because it's believed to be the only likeness of Arthur, Prince of Wales, taken in his lifetime. And of course, he never succeeds to the throne. He marries Catherine of Aragon, but dies shortly thereafter. And it places Henry VIII in a very precarious position. He's the sole heir, and all of that weight transfers to his shoulders.
This picture, I mean, both in its size and in the fact that he's holding a gillyflower, it's almost certainly an engagement picture, isn't it? And it reminds us just how young Arthur was and Catherine was when they were married to each other. I mean, quite a contrast here between this one and his brother Henry.
Absolutely. This is Henry, shall we say, later in his life. He's holding the weight on his shoulders.
The picture that you've painted, actually, and just seeing them like this really brings home to us how thin a thread the Tudor dynasty is hanging on, and why Henry VIII is so desperately anxious to have a male heir.
It really is. You get this feeling with Henry that he has this anxiety that those warring factions are going to rise up again. And it really sort of shapes Henry's reign. He, of course, marries Catherine of Aragon in the hope that he is going to be able to secure a male heir. And it just doesn't come.
This is a portrait of Catherine, which shows how she looked in around 1530, when she was 44 years old.
Some of the people who comment on Catherine of Aragon's appearance in the 15-teens and 1520s are not very nice about her. But I think once you realise that she's gone through 6 pregnancies, that she's lost 5 children, I mean, including Prince Henry, who dies at 7 weeks old, that's going to take a toll on your appearance, isn't it?
It must have been emotionally devastating for her. But I do have a lot of admiration for her that she kept going. This is a real character of a woman, and I do admire her very much.
She was intelligent, she was learned. In fact, all the things we say about Anne Boleyn are also true of Catherine.
They are remarkably similar women. If only there had been a different circumstances, I'm sure they would have gotten on famously.
So let's have a look at your Anne herself. So this is a very attractive picture of Anne, but we know, of course, it's unlikely to have been painted in her lifetime.
That's right. In fact, I don't think we have any known contemporary paintings of Anne. She wasn't renowned for being beautiful, but she was different. And I think a lot of that difference came from here. It started at Hever Castle. Her father was a humanist. He educated his daughters well and is able to place his daughter at the court of France. And Anne absolutely soaks up all of the differences. And I think she comes back to England wearing this daring French fashion and was just beguiling. You know, it didn't really matter what she looked like, it was what she did and said and thought.
Yeah, so it's her sophistication, it's her wit that's distinguishing her.
4